All right, something I saw earlier today was the net rankings, which I was really surprised by. Not gonna lie, because San Diego State had themselves a pretty darn good week out in Las Vegas in that Thanksgiving tournament, where they face three quality teams. They get two wins. They get a win against Creighton. They get a win against a top 6 team in the nation in Houston. It wasn't at Viejas, by the way. Neutral floor in Vegas. And so those are really good quality opponents. You know, it was a close loss, pretty close loss against Oregon. Oregon's a good quality opponent. They just played Gonzaga and they hung in there a little bit. I didn't think they were going to win that game ever during that game, but it wasn't a huge blowout. And I think that's solid considering that Miles Bird, Farrah Compton were dealing with injuries / cramps. No Reese Waters, obviously, so far this season. But San Diego State, I was listening to the radio actually this morning, and it was Ben Higgins talking about what was it? The San Diego State had the number one strength of schedule, I guess, according to metrics or whatever. And so for them to only have 2 losses when they have the best record and to be ranked 60th in the net rankings, which is like, the college football playoff, they don't really have those, but like it's supposed to be based on stats and not subjective. It's just based on whatever system this is, right? So it's part of what I think the committee looks at to help them form their March Madness, right? Well, San Diego State was ranked 60th in this, and they're 3-2 overall. Now, just 3-2, that doesn't seem like the best record, right? But 2 of those 3 wins are against Creighton and Houston, which are going to be tournament teams, And the 2 losses are Gonzaga, one of the best teams in the country, and Oregon, who is probably going to be one of the best teams in the country when all things are. They're going to be a tournament team, I would imagine. I'd be pretty surprised if they're not going to be. So 60th, I understand not being top 10 or even top 20, but 60th? This makes me question like taking the net rankings super seriously. Because I feel like there's some fans that take the net rankings and care more about the net rankings more than they do like the AP top 25 anymore, right? Because that's voters. Some, voters aren't watching. You can't watch every team, right? But the net rankings, is supposed to be more about just numbers. I just don't understand how San Diego State is 60th. Now, there are teams like St. Bonaventure who have played 7 games and they're 6-1. Texas is 6-1. But who has Texas played? Who has St. Bonaventure played? And does their 6-1 outweighs the Aztecs beating quality teams? And they're 3-2. That's not as impressive as 6-1 when you just look at the records. But I think we got to dig deeper on that. Quad 1 for St. Bonaventure, for example, they haven't won a game in Quad 1. They're 3-0 in Quad 3, Quad 4 2-0, Quad 2 1-0. They played 1 game against a Quad 1 opponent. San Diego State has played 3 games against Quad 1 opponents, and they're 2-0 against Quad 2 opponents. So to have a win against a Quad 1, they're just a better program, I think, than St. Bonaventure. And sure, I'm biased, but I'm not trying to this is just the school that's, 57th, one of the smaller schools that's ahead of San Diego State. It's just like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Something else that doesn't make a whole lot of sense are teams like UConn being ahead of the Aztecs. When UConn lost 3 games in 1 week, and they're ahead of San Diego State. Now, I would get it if it was like the AP top 25 because, it's big UConn, But if it's supposed to be based off of numbers, They haven't won a quad one game. They're 0-2. They're 5-0 at home, but on neutral floor, they're 0-3 in that Hawaii tournament. San Diego State's not 0-3 in neutral site games. I think what hurts San Diego State right now is that there's a bunch of teams that have, 8 games played, 7 games played. I'm looking at Nevada in the Mountain West. They're 32nd. They haven't played any quad one opponents, by the way, but they're 32nd. They're 6-1. Like, that has to help them, right? But why, the point of this video is not just because this doesn't make much sense to me why San Diego State is 60th. Again, if they were 30th or something like that, okay, I guess that's more understandable, but 60th just doesn't make sense to me. My main point of this video, by the way, though, was to talk about why this may hurt San Diego State, because if they're just coming off of a win against number 6 Houston, and they played Gonzaga, they played Oregon, a win against Creighton, and by the way, their big man was playing in that game. San Diego State's not fully healthy. Those wins on our neutral floor, they're not playing those caliber of opponents the rest of the way, before we get to March Madness. Nevada, if they're going to be a solid team, Utah State, they're 14th. That could help San Diego State in the net, but by the time all things are said and done, who knows if Utah State and Nevada end up being at the top of the Mountain West? Who knows if they end up, Utah State's undefeated, 6-0. By the way, they played no quad one teams. They're 3-0 against quad 2, 1-0 against quad 3, 2-0 against quad 4. Quad 1, obviously, those are the best opponents according to these numbers, these systems, whatever. So San Diego State beating them may not end up being as impressive as it may look now if they faced off against one another. And so for this to be, I don't know if this is going to be the high point, because let's give Utah State and Nevada credit. Let's say they will be high still. Well, San Diego State, they still got a ways to climb here before they get a favorable seed in the Mountain West or in the NCAA tournament, if they're ranked 60th in the net. And they've got some room to be a slam dunk in the tournament. They still got some things to do here. They got to get some quality wins, even after playing Gonzaga and beating Creighton and playing Oregon, who is 15th on this, by the way. They're undefeated, and that was a pretty close game. And beating Houston, big physical team. I thought that they'd be way higher than 60th. So, the rest of the way, what are we looking at here? Maybe some quality opponents. Again, Utah State. Who was the other team? Nevada. And there could be some interesting games that the numbers in the net don't really care about, like going at Wyoming late in the year, going at Utah State late in the year. The net, I don't think that they factor in, oh, you're playing at Wyoming, and that could be a tough matchup there, So, a couple things here. One, it's upsetting, frustrating that San Diego State is somehow ranked 60th. And I think part of it is because they haven't played as many games as a lot of other schools, but there's a lot of schools that they played games, but what quality of opponents are those that they're playing, San Diego State, they played, 5 games, and a majority of their opponents have been really good teams, and they have a winning record, and they're not even fully healthy yet. I just think that should outweigh sometimes just teams playing more games than you, when it's December 2nd. Although it is December 2nd, so maybe I'm overreacting to this, but I just, again, this was I thought the Aztecs, they capitalized on the opportunity. They won 2 of the 3 games in Vegas. I thought that maybe it won't be the high point because, we'll see what happens later in the year. Maybe they could have a ridiculous great record, and obviously it wouldn't be the high point. but I thought that they would be, ranked school, look at the net, and they'd be, around 30, not 60th. But if you go look up these net rankings for yourself, it's a lot of teams that are 7-0. There's I'm not saying San Diego State's better than these teams, by the way, like Tennessee, Auburn, Gonzaga, but it's a lot of teams that have built up their records. Now, credit to Auburn, they're 4-0 against quad one teams. They've actually played a lot of quad one teams. But I see a lot of teams here that have played 0 quad one games. They played 1 quad one game. They haven't won their 1 quad one game that they've played. And they just have played a lot more games, a few more games so far than San Diego State. And their record is more impressive than being 1 game over 500 like San Diego State is right now. So maybe those teams slide, and then, we'll be talking about something totally different. Boise State is at 38th. UConn 39th. St. John's is 42. Drake is at 45 ahead of San Diego State. Now they're undefeated, so I understand, how you could look at that and be like, wow. But 0 quad one games for them, and they have 1 quad two game. So who are you playing? I'll mention that again. Who are you playing here? And it's like the number of games seems to be outweighing the quality of opponent. And if we're just going based off of record, then anyone can do this. But I thought the net rankings were supposed to be a little bit different. But we'll see. There's a long way to go here, obviously. San Diego State up next. They've got Fresno State coming up at home, or excuse me, at Fresno State, my bad. Their next home game is December 7th at Viejas against USD. But yeah, your thoughts in the comments. I just thought it was something interesting to hit on tonight.